Hey guys, welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles! In the last episode, which I recorded like 2 days ago because I didn't have time to do so in the meantime, we discovered that this young lady, Miss Lestrade, was on the Omnibus and she was alongside Mr. McGilded when the murder took place, and for some reason he wanted to protect her, and we couldn't figure out why he would do so. And in this episode we're gonna start... Oh, sorry, I live near a fire station, you might hear that. And in this episode we're gonna start the cross-examination of Mr. McGilded, who tries to, for some reason, protect this young girl. So let's get started and see what we get, what the girl saw.
So I snuck inside the carriage before they hooked up the horses, just like always. But it wasn't right always at time. I got nothing to show for me troubles that night.
Oh, I forgot to press her because we already heard that. So, you were already in the omnibus before it even set off on its run.
Well, yeah, I mean, what's the point of spending your jolly to make few bob, That's a rum idea, innit?
I suppose she means there's no point spending money to make money. It actually makes sense. Counsel, may I remind you that this girl is a petty thief? Kindly refrain from entertaining her tenants.
Well, that does clear up the little mystery of the fares and all. For paying passengers at 5 pence apiece, making the 20 to which the cabman testified. And one little scapegrace riding for free. The red conch of driver always goes for some grub before its last run, see? So that's when I slip into the carriage and get myself hidden under the seat. Nice and easy, right?
But your hiding place is a storage compartment, full of equipment for the coach, no?
Yeah, there's brushes and buckets and whatnot in there, sure. I always chuck all that out and cram it into a corner somewhere. No one ever seems to bother much.
And yet, according to the report filed by the police officer who first arrived at the scene, the compartment was full of such paraphernalia.
Well, I don't know nothing about that. Like I said, I moved all that stuff out so I could hide under the seat. That's all I can tell ya.
It seems we've reached the end of the line of inquiry. Continue.
But it was a waste of time. I got nothing to show for my troubles that night.
Okay, let's press. A waste of time? Why is that?
Well, most nights I'm on my own. The got permit at least some of the time.
I beg your pardon? Did you say got permit?
Oh yeah, well that's what kinda call it. You'd say the omnibus, I suppose. The point is, any normal run, the carriage ain't got no one in it for a while.
And that's when you came out of your hiding place and get away.
That's it. Only that night. This cove was set on me set for the start. And he didn't budge the whole way, did he? Not 1 inch. I was totally stuck.
Do you mean to tell us that you were present in the carriage for the duration? You were under the seat the entire time while events unfolded in the enclosed cabin?
Yeah, right, mister. To be sure. I was as shocked as anyone. You don't expect to lift the cushion you've been sat on by the child now, do ya?
So this Miss Lestrade couldn't possibly be the culprit then?
I'll tell you, can't see a blood thing in that hiding place. It's pitch in there.
Hold it! Let's press. So you couldn't see out into the cabin at all?
Not a jot. Most days I push the cushion up with me head and look out the crack. Then I can't have the butchers out whom I'm gonna fiddle.
I thought you were a pickpocket, not a butcher?
I mean, can I have a look? See, the cat ain't as plush as the other one, see? So most of the time, passengers plan themselves opposite. But for some reason that night, this here Irishman spent the whole journey right over my head.
And for that reason, you weren't able to push the cushion up to peek out, I see.
Truth is, I ain't too happy in small, dark places. Feels too much like being thrown into the clink. But it's the only place to hide in carriages, so it's ups and shies.
Why doesn't she just stick to picking people's pockets in the open then? I'd say there's some reason that she's not letting on, judging from her demeanor.
So anyways, I was a bit scared, but I'd just stick it out under there. Nothing else for it.
Okay, so that's kind of fishy apparently.
Then after a while, I yelled this loud bang, nearly jumped out my skin, I did, and the scream just came out.
Hold it! When you say a loud bang, do you mean the noise of someone falling to the floor?
Could have been, suppose. I don't remember so well. Point is, it made me jump.
And you let her scream, and you let out a scream involuntarily.
That's right. And then I felt the cushion over me head get lighter all of a sudden.
Presumably when the defendant got up in order to help the victim, yes? Or not. It could equally happen the moment the accused stood in order to stab the victim. Could it not? Well, girl, did you see what happened at the crucial moment?
Yeah, I saw it.
Oh,
I pushed up the cushion and had a quick butcher's swallow at the chance, didn't I? The Irishman was sitting up the block. What had fallen on the floor on the seat opposite?
that matches Mr. McGilded's account, of course.
But then, the fellow suddenly turns around and looks right at me. I sunk back down again, but it was too late by then. I should never have risked looking. It's because of that this swallow found me. It did help me get away, man.
Hold it! And when Mr. McGilded discovered you, he pulled you out from your hiding place?
I was scared stiff for Wes. Dragged me out and sat me down on the seat and all.
Next to the victim, Mr. Mason?
Yeah, the bloke had a knife in its guts. It was still bleeding. And then the carriage lurched a bit, and he ended up falling onto me.
Oh, how awful.
Both me and got covered in blood. It made me feel sick as dog.
Both her hands covered in blood. That must be what the rooftop passengers saw. After that, I believe you talked with Mr. McGilded for a while. Is that correct?
He asked me some stuff. I wanted to know me name and what I was up to in that. Then I heard something from above. Someone screamed.
Yes, Mr. First on the roof deck, one would presume.
Well, I didn't want no one seeing me face, so I didn't look up. Then the horses were drawn up smartish, and this Irishman says to me, "Get back under the seat. I'll see that you can get away later."
All 6 members of the jury have decided the defendant was innocent. For one brief shining moment, yes. It's clear that they are all still very unsure. If we could just find some conclusive piece of evidence among this new testimony, I'm sure we will clinch the verdict we want. Yes, I think you're right. And I have this niggling feeling something's bothering me, but I just can't quite put my finger on it. Okay, I have to think about this a little bit. It's been a while since I played, so I'm not really in. For me troubles that night? Can't see a live thing that high. It's pitch in there. And then the scream just came out. So what could this be then? I'll have to examine some things first. This is a conundrum. I don't really know. So, this was kind of fishy, right? I'm just gonna press this one again. So you couldn't see the cabin at all, not a jot. Push it, look at the crack. Then there came a butcher, so I'm gonna fiddle. I thought you were a pickpocket, not a butcher. So most of the passengers plant themselves opposite. But for some reason that night, this Irishman spent the whole journey right over my head. And for that reason, you weren't able to push the cushion up to peek out.
Well, no.
We're gonna look around. And we're gonna pursue this. Alright. Is something wrong, Mr. McGilded?
Oh, I do apologize. Was there something the matter, Counsel?
I'm just wondering if Miss Lestrade's last comment made something occur to you, perhaps. You seem to be thinking something to yourself.
Oh, no, it was nothing important. I was feeling bad for the poor lass, is all. I remember feeling desperate myself as a young lad. Shut up in the dark. It was terrifying, so it was.
I see. Yes, I'm sure we can all sympathize. I'm still scared of the dark now.
And I don't know about yourself, but I find that the darkness seems to make everything you hear seem that much louder as well. Yeah. I suppose it does, maybe.
Miss Lestrade, did you hear something that night? Anything? An unusual noise, perhaps?
No, not really. All I could hear was the Irishman snoring. Pajamas, there's no need to tell the whole world of my foibles, you little scamp.
What a pity. If only Miss Lestrade had heard something, it might have given us a vital new clue. Sorry, guys. Yes. What should we make of that last statement of her? I guess it's profoundly important. Not being significant is not the way to go, usually. My lord, I believe the statement just made by the witness is profoundly important. Profoundly important? But all she said was that she heard nothing. Yes, which is the profoundly important point. I'm almost sure of it. Almost. I'm almost sure that I don't understand the inner workings of your Eastern Mind Council. Nevertheless, Miss Gina Lestrade, you will supplement your formal testimony by repeating that last statement, please.
What? Supplement? What are you about? Don't give me all your fancy talk. I know what you're trying to do. Well, it won't work on me.
That's right. Insult the judge. Always a good move. Alright, our stand met.
Our stand me ears to work out what was going on, but all I could was snoring.
So this is new. Okay. So we're gonna press that, of course. So you're straining to hear what was happening the entire time, since the moment you hit yourself?
Not exactly, nah.
Sorry?
Well, there was no one in the cabin to start with. I could just push the cushion up and just to see what was what.
Then, when I saw the swell getting on... Okay. And Mr. McGilded sat on the seat... and Mr. McGilded sat on the seat under which you were hiding, correct? Yeah, what you them even, yeah? What a mug! So then, all I could do was listen. I was waiting to jump out of there as soon as I heard him leave, see? But would he? Not likely. Even though we stopped here and there, I never heard the door open. So just had to stay put and listen, and I'm driving his pigs to market, snoring like an old dog he was. Are there any conclusions we can draw from that? Let me check the court record. There must be something we can draw out of this. He was snoring. So she says... was out there as soon as I heard him leave, but would not likely. She never heard the door open. But he reacts like this. So it doesn't add up. But what exactly doesn't add up, I have no... Mr. Lestrade, what you have just told the court. It's clearly at odds with the facts. At odds? Are you sure, man? Absolutely. It seems my learned Japanese friend is not as dull-witted as I feared. So one Zeeks realized it too. What did we realize? I don't have a clue, guys. Counsel, I must insist that you bolster your claim with evidence or some complicit party's name at the very least. Yes, my lord. I expect you to demonstrate this alleged contradiction to the court. According to Miss Lestrade, while she was hiding in the omnibus that night, she heard nothing but the sound of Mr. McGilded snoring, but think, Renoska, think. There's something else she should have heard. Oh my god. What is it then? I mean, he was stabbed, so I'm gonna show him as a person, right? Because none of these might make sense. And what the people are, they were just riding along. She couldn't have heard them. So I'm gonna go with Mason. Very well, my lord. Allow me to elaborate. On a particular sound that Mr. Lestrade could not have failed to hear on that night in question. The sound very clearly explained by the presence of the following person. And I'm gonna present it.
Take that!
Thrice fired, my Mason? Yes, my lord. The sound that Miss Lestrade cannot have failed to hear. Is that of the victim, Mr. Mason, boarding the omnibus? Ah, okay, not dying, but boarding the omnibus. Order! Explain your reasoning, counsel. Miss Lestrade, allow me to confirm something. You claimed earlier that you were the first person on board the omnibus. Is that correct? Yeah, of course it was. I got on while the driver was in the pub, didn't I? And the next person to board the omnibus was Mr. McGilded. That it was.
Not a soul was in the cabin when I climbed aboard. At least not in plain sight.
So you were, to all intents and purposes, alone in the enclosed cabin of the omnibus at that time.
Did I not just say as much? I wasn't traveling with anyone else, if that's what you mean.
Yeah, I saw him get on, remember? Throw the cat on the seat cushion.
He was on his own for sure.
And from what we've heard, the carriage made a number of stops after that on its onward journey. During which time did you not hear the door opening or closing at all?
No, I never heard it. That's exactly what I was listening for, weren't it? Waiting for this swell to leave.
In which case, when and how did the victim end up in the carriage? Ugh. We know that the victim collapsed inside the enclosed cabin of the omnibus. Therefore, Miss Lestrade's statement about what she did or did not hear is at odds with the facts.
Ah.
Yes, this petty thief's statement was clearly flawed. Lord von Zix. Yes, he knew all too well that there was an inconsistency in Miss Lestrade's statement. It would seem words of thanks are in order for my learned friend. What are you talking about? You have demonstrated matters impeccably. This witness and her colorful statements are entirely unreliable. Her words are convenient untruths, nothing more.
He's dead. How could the victim possibly not have boarded the omnibus?
That makes no sense whatsoever.
And this girl is a pickpocket. Let's not forget that.
Oh, she didn't even say anything.
I didn't want to judge the dear little Mike just because she has some rather naughty ways. But I must say, I can't but liars.
And neither can I. Mr. Foreman! I didn't want to judge the girl just because she has some less than salubrious ways. But I must say, I can't abide liars. Oh, okay, this is not good though. For us, at least.
Mr. Naruto, there's 5 jury members leaning towards guilty.
Well, your consideration for others is refreshing, my Nipponese friend. To the considerable troubles you have spared me. Yes, very refreshing.
Oh! Ah, what are you playing at? Have you forgotten who you're working for, you useless Eastern Amadan? This is carnage. It's perfect.
Juror number 2 is the only one left.
Mr. Naruto, the way this is going.
I know, if we can't find some new way to convince everyone of Mr. McGilded's innocence, the judge will rule and we'll have lost.
I very much wanted to believe the words of one of London's most respected gentlemen. But those of us in service know we must accept hard truths.
Uh-oh.
Hold it!
Okay, what do we have in stock? Yes, the witness's last statement seems to have revealed a critical inconsistency in her story. However, if we consider the possibility that her statement is in fact the truth, it may shed an entirely new light on this whole case. What are you saying?
Counsel? I'm sorry, sir. What do you mean?
Counsel, I will not tolerate you attempting to prorogue my education. Explain yourself at once. When the accused boarded the omnibus on the night in question, the victim was nowhere to be seen. Subsequently, the carriage door was not heard opening a single time as testified by the witness in the stand. And yet the victim's body was found inside the carriage. If this petty thief's words are to be believed, how do you explain the victim's miraculous appearance inside the cabin of the omnibus? there's only one way to explain how the victim came to be inside the carriage. Okay, so what is it? He was in there already? There's another entrance? He was put there after he died. It must be he was in there already. Because there is no other entrance. There's the skylight though. Huh. Could be slid through the skylight. Let me just check a second, guys. Because this is very important. Don't want to mess up. So the skylight can be opened. You can certainly see inside the carriage through this opening, that's for sure. Yes, and there's lamp enclosed in cabin. So I'm sure the witness could have been able to see quite clearly. That's not good for us. So there is the skylight. So it could be the skylight. This doesn't really make sense because if he was put there after he died, then she would still have heard. She would have still heard the door, right? And he wasn't there because there's no way to say. I'm going to go with. There's another entrance. If the door wasn't opened even once, their only explanation is that the victim entered the enclosed cabin some other way.
Objection!
I wondered what new fantasy you would come up with in your blind panic. But behold, the Omnibus is here for all to see. Only one side of the enclosed cabin is furnished with a door, the other has only windows. Fixed windows which cannot possibly open. In short, there is no entrance in the cabin other than the door.
Objection!
But there could be. There's one possibility you haven't considered. Oh, really? Yes, one other way inside that isn't the door. Another opening, the use of which allowed the victim to appear inside the enclosed cabin. All right, counsel. The defense will identify the location for the court. Here is the omnibus on which the incident occurred. Where on earth is this entrance by which you propose the victim entered the cabin? So, I already told you guys, I think it's the skylight. So I'm gonna present the skylight. The answer is obvious. It can only have been the skylight. I say the skylight?
Objection!
Your ludicrous proposal almost has me lost for words. However,
Objection!
the skylight may well be large enough for someone to pass through. That's true.
Objection!
So you claim. But do you have a shred of evidence to support your adult-brained theory? Both Mr. McGilded and Mr. Straat said the same in their testimonies. They each claim to have heard a loud thud, such as the noise made by someone falling to the floor. Yes, which has already been explained, as the sound of the victim falling from his seat having been assaulted with a dagger. Yes, it has, but would a man slipping from the seat onto the floor really have made such a loud noise as the witnesses describe? A noise loud enough to cause Miss Lestrade to let out an involuntary cry, in fact. Good gracious! Perhaps, in fact, that was the moment that the victim made his entrance into the cabin. No, let me rephrase it. The victim didn't enter the cabin as such. He fell into it.
Objection!
You're no suggesting that the victim fell from the skylight into the cabin? That's simply impossible. How can you be so sure? Because if the victim had fallen inside through the skylight, as you say, the passengers on the roof deck would have seen it happen. And yet, No one person made mention of such events in their testimony. That's true. Well, yes, that's true, but...
Mighty humble fellow, make a wee comment here.
Mr. McGilded!
To be sure now, the two fellows who were sat on the roof that testified of fall said nothing of the victim falling through the skylight. But it seems to me, my lord, that 'tis not so much a case of them not saying, but 'tis a case of them being unable to say.
What?
I think perhaps the two fellas do be having something of a compelling reason not to mention what happened. Would yous not agree, fine ladies and gentlemen of the jury?
Oh my goodness, surely not.
Those two chaps on the roof? You mean the ones who stuck the knife in the man were? Ah!
Just what exactly are you insinuating here, you blitherer?
Urata, he said! Urata, what are you insinuating?
This is a flaming outrage. I've a good mind to give you a blinker in a minute.
I'll give you a shine in a minute, he said, and so will I.
Mr. Fairplay, you're effectively accusing me, a city gentleman and well-respected banker.
And me, a very angry hatter.
Suggesting that someone like me could have stabbed that man in the guts. It's a disgrace. It's scandalous. I protest in the strongest possible terms.
That's right, I protest too, about you rotten scoundrel.
Order, order, order! This is not the time, witnesses. I will not permit this wanton invasion of the stand. Return to the anteroom at once. But this is beyond reason, my lord. It's outrageous.
It's very hurtful, you know.
My lord, if I may comment. Go ahead, Lord von Zieks. It was the defense that incited this outburst from the witnesses. My learned friend has seen fit to abandon all protocol and accuse the witnesses without proof. Accuse? I never intended to... It seems, young Nipponese, that your command of the English tongue is wanting. You propose to this court that the victim fell through the skylight from the roof deck of the omnibus. That hypothesis... That hypothesis cannot possibly stand without the rooftop passengers being aware of the events. You have branded these gentlemen liars. You have intimidated their criminal guilt. In our British courts of law, that was what is termed a baseless accusation. I know I was rash to put this idea forward without any actual evidence, but you can't just dismiss it without a second thought.
What are we wasting time for? Get them to testify!
I thought there was something fishy about that from the moment I laid eyes on the fellow.
We have to see the matter through now, one way or another.
If there's filth and rubbish in our midst, we must dispose of it at once. What's happening, Mr. Naruhodo? The spectators in the public gallery they're in complete frenzy. Mr. Fairplay, Mr. First? My lord. You will take the stand again and make another formal testimony in reference to the indictment brought by the defense. Yes, my lord. I didn't come here for this. There's no time to think this through. All I can do is keeping pushing forward. Refuting the accusation, but guys, we've reached the half-hour mark. We actually crossed the half-hour mark already, quite a bit actually. So, if you want to know what these two guys have to say for themselves, you'll have to tune in for the next time in The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. See you then. Bye bye.